Vice Chair Parker present.
Thank you. Good evening. Commissioner Ames Messenger. Okay, Commissioner Coy. Commissioner Esposito.
Commissioner Esposito present.
Good evening. Welcome, welcome. Commissioner Kenyatta Bay.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay here.
Welcome. Good evening. Commissioner Mohammed. Yeah. Commissioner Redding Lollinger.
Commissioner Redding Lounge present.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Commissioner Rooks. Commissioner Rooks. Commissioner Slater Harrington. And I am present this evening. We will have some commissioners who will join us as we get started this evening. So each school operator will have approximately 4 minutes to present, and following each school's presentation, the commissioners will have time to ask questions. After the board is finished with questions, we'll transition to the next school. We ask that you keep your phones muted and videos off until it is time to testify. Tonight's work session is dedicated to hearing from the school operators and their communities. There will be no public comment. However, more information about how to provide public comment during this process will be shared by Ms. Alvarez during her opening presentation. And now I'll turn it over to Ms. Alvarez to get us started.
Really quickly, Slater Harrington present.
Welcome, Commissioner Slater Harrington. Glad to have you here this evening.
And this is Dr. Jennifer Judkins. I'm the board executive. I would just like to give some instruction for those who need Spanish interpretation, just so that everyone, as we start the presentations, is able to participate. So we'll start there. And to access the Spanish interpretation channel from a computer, please click on the globe-like icon at the bottom right of your Zoom window, then select Spanish.
If I may, I'm going to give the instructions in Spanish real quick.
Perfect.
Para seleccionar español, si usted desea utilizar el servicio de traducción y se encuentra en una computadora, por favor seleccione el botón que dice Interpretación en los controles que están en la parte de abajo de su pantalla y elija español. Si usted está en una tableta o celular, haga clic en los 3 puntitos en la esquina inferior derecha de su ventana Zoom, después Interpretación de idioma y después español. Si no selecciona un idioma, no podrá escuchar al intérprete. Gracias.
Well, thank you. All right, we'll turn it over to Ms. Alvarez to get us started.
Good evening, board commissioners and our operators and our school communities. Welcome, and we're glad to have you tonight for this important operator work session. I'm going to pull up a very short presentation, and we'll begin calling schools up individually. And so, one second to share my screen. This is again the first work session. There's a second one tomorrow for operator renewal. It ties to board priorities 4 around effective engagement of all of our stakeholders, who've all played a lot of different roles to get us to tonight, which included our parents, our families, our caregivers, our students, and obviously our schools and operators. And this is very impactful in terms of our children's education and how to contribute to school success. And it aligns to board priority 6, which is our focus on increasing educational programming that guarantees a high quality educational experience for students, including our charter and other operator schools. Tonight we're here at the first day of work sessions. There'll be another work session tomorrow from 5:30 to 7:30. We have a school with a pending recommendation whose recommendation will be presented at the December 10th meeting. For any schools that are recommended for closure or non-renewal, there's 2 hearings coming up on December 12th and January 9th, and we expect the board to vote on January 14th. And so with that, we're going to have the folks from Baltimore Design School to go ahead and turn on their cameras. And so design schools are transformation schools in middle high. They're being recommended for an 8-year renewal. They were effective in each of the 3 key areas: student achievement, climate, financial management, and governance. And with that said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and invite the design school to turn on their cameras and begin to address the board.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Pinkard, Vice Chair of the Baltimore Design School. There was a time when one of our biggest bragging points was our award-winning building, but now it barely makes the list. Today, we proudly speak of the U.S. News and World Report naming us the #1 public high school in Baltimore City. And of course, we celebrate the accomplishments of our students. BDS addresses two primary issues: to provide opportunities for our youth to pursue an experiential education in design, and to increase the diversity of the design industry. Our longer-term purpose is to develop responsible leaders who will impact our city and the region. With these goals in mind, we created the Leadership Program. Through this program, we provide academic and professional experiences for all students. For example, fashion students have worked behind the scenes with up-and-coming fashion designers at New York Fashion Week for the past 2 years. Architecture students visited Cornell University College of Architecture, Art, and Planning to work on a collaborative project. Graphic design had trips to Richmond and New York to explore design schools and museums. Summer shadow programs were held at local architecture and animation studios. Students attended workshops led by industry experts, including design and build projects, photography workshops, and an interior design club. After-school programs provided opportunities to learn leadership skills while also having fun. The Leadership Program is driven by our dedicated board members, along with other corporate and design partners, and funded by our generous donors, many of whom have made multi-year pledges to provide sustainable funding so these programs can continue year after year. Principal Rosine.
Thank you, Ms. Pinkard. Good evening to everybody. As the proud principal of Baltimore Design School, I'm happy to report that since our last renewal, we've seen a growth in both attendance and in academics. Baltimore Design School, over the past 7 years, has continued to maintain a high graduation rate of over 90%. And most recently, we saw a 100% graduation rate and 100% college acceptance rate, with a near 0% dropout rate since the last renewal. In addition, as we're seeing graduation rates continue to increase, we see our attendance going up as well, pushing an average of the 90% range. Furthermore, our work in chronic absentee decreases has shown our students are showing up more to school, as we've continued to drop by a 10% clip each year since returning from COVID. Our current chronic absentee rate for school year 23-24 has dropped to 39.3%, which is nearing the 26-27 goal set in our school performance plan. As we encourage and engage more students in hands-on, minds-on learning and continue to use critical thinking and design thinking skills, we continue to celebrate their successes as they proceed into college and career. We've recently received an honor from the College Board of a platinum status for having 97% of our seniors take at least one AP exam, and a silver status award for students, for 31% of students scoring at least a 3 or higher on at least one AP exam. In addition, we are happy to report that we continue to push our practices when it comes to MCAP scores as well. In high school, our ELA rates have been over 50% proficiency for the past 3 years. And last year was over 60% of our 10th graders scoring proficient. We continue to challenge and push our middle school students in ELA and math MCAP scores, and we've seen our highest rates since the last renewal in both math and ELA. Furthermore, we want to encourage all our teachers and our students to work collaboratively, and our teachers to plan intentionally to ensure that we're meeting the needs of each unique learner. We do this successfully through our intervention program, where we have daily intervention and advisory programs, where students have time and teachers have time to meet the needs of each unique learner through personalized learning platforms, social and emotional learning lessons, tutoring sessions, and new this year, an all-timely session each Friday where students get to elect which coach class and which support during the school day they need extra help in. This allows students to not only connect with teachers and get the supports they need, but that includes also gaining reteaching opportunities, reassessment opportunities, and enrichment opportunities for our students in middle and high school. I want to once again thank the board and the BDS community for partnering with us and helping us to achieve our goals.
Any questions?
Yes, I was looking for the little hand. I'm not used to this platform. I do have one quick question for you. May I proceed?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, okay. Um, as we know, City Schools has a portrait of a graduate. We've been looking at that, but every school individually has a portrait of a graduate. And coming out of the design field, a scenic lighting designer for theater for a long, long time. But what do you see as the portrait of your graduate that does not necessarily pursue? Because I'm very proud of the work you do, by the way. I applaud you, but I just wanted to know, what do you see as the portrait of your graduate coming out of the Baltimore Design School? What future?
Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. So I think what we're really emphasizing with our scholars is options, right? And what we want our scholars, once they graduate from Baltimore Design, many of which have stayed with us from 6th grade to 12th grade, and we've worked with them and their families to get to the point that they're at. We want them to have options, right? We want them to have options of colleges. We want them to have options of careers. We want them to be able to compete in today's world. And that's the most important thing for us. And to do that, we utilize City Schools' Portrait of a Graduate to make sure that they have the skills necessary. But we push further to make sure that students are critical thinkers and that they use the design thinking process. And I think that's something that we've infused into our courses here at Baltimore Design School to ensure students are thinking creatively and outside of the box when it comes to problems, right? We recently had a graduate who came back and spoke to our seniors last school year, talking about their interest in design, although they pursued a degree in law. And what they emphasized at that point is that even though they may not be focusing on their design background and their design skills, they utilize the steps that we infuse with our design thinking process in any situation, because it really challenges our students to think critically about a situation, look at options, explore connections with other individuals, and make sure they're reflecting and hearing from multiple perspectives. And so for us, a graduate of Baltimore Design School really emphasizes that opportunity to think critically and to explore the world, because they have the ability to do so and that they have the background and knowledge to be designers. As I say, at each graduation, our designers can graduate and overcome the challenges. They can break down the walls, they can climb and scale the barriers, and they can make sure those roadblocks don't stop them or impede them. Because again, they have those abilities and those skills.
Thank you. And I couldn't have scripted a better answer because it was just perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay.
The additional question I'm just going to lift up that may be helpful as we're most of our city schools, we're thinking about proficiency across the board and growth as well. Can you just tell us a little bit about like math achievement inside of the school and like what you guys are targeting in the coming renewal?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's our big area of focus, right? We've seen tremendous success in English. We've seen growth and proficiency there. But what our challenge has been is really working to make sure that we're looking at the math data and pushing and driving those practices as well. Many of our students come to us in middle school and in high school multiple grade levels behind. And so it's incumbent upon us to support those foundational skills while also not living in those foundational skills. And what we're really trying to intentionally do is backwards map key standards that we see are being assessed consistently through the MCAT, and make sure that we look at standards and see, hey, what does mastering the standard look like? And what are the foundational skills that we can infuse that students may need to build to that standard? So it requires our teachers to academically plan together and as a grade level, as a vertical team. So we're looking at sixth grade teachers looking and supporting high school teachers and saying, hey, our students are struggling with this skill. What are some of the techniques that you're doing in middle school that may be foundational for my scholars to work with and build their capacity towards mastery? And so that's one of the key pieces that we're looking at is backward mapping the standard and identifying where we can infuse some of those foundational skills that may be lacking that we can reinforce. In addition, we really got to emphasize the curricular implementation and making sure that the exit tickets that we're using and the formative assessments that we're providing aren't just sitting, right? We've got to make sure we see where the strengths of our scholars are and where our areas of growth are and plan intentionally. And through that intervention block, we're able to meet some of those needs outside of, hey, I have my hour of math. We have additional time to work on some of those math skills to build those up. And so we're going to continue to utilize that and work with our staff to make sure that they're being reflective of those data points and then able to take very clear next steps to help students progress.
Great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Could you speak to this is Commissioner Redding-Lallinger. Thank you for being here. There seems to have been a significant jump in the suspension rate in the middle school in the past year, and it's significantly higher than the average in the rest of our schools here in city schools. Can you speak to that data point for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we found our particular middle school, and in particular, I would say our last year's sixth grade group brought in with some behavior challenges. There's an all call right now. Sorry.
No problem. We understand.
My apologies for that. We have a mentoring session going on. They're making an announcement. So yeah, we drove down and we looked at that in particular because we noticed that jump in suspension rate from year to year. And in particular, we saw that our sixth graders, our new sixth graders or incoming sixth graders faced some of the challenges and behavioral expectations that were not in alignment with our expectations for students. And we've worked really diligently. And this year we've seen that number drastically decrease as seventh graders because we've been very intentional about what that looks like. The biggest thing that we saw is students were struggling to have positive interactions with one another. And a lot of that time that led to verbal conflicts and disputes that could carry out into physical in certain instances. And so we've been very intentional about utilizing supports that we've had with partners like Holistic Life Foundation for mindfulness and conflict resolution and the restorative practices. And so, and acknowledging that, we've been really intentional in making sure that we see that our students were struggling with those positive interactions as they were coming from multiple different elementary schools and getting to know one another. And that transition from elementary to middle, we've noticed can be a challenge. And so the biggest thing that we saw and the cause for that jump in suspension rate, specifically in that sixth grade group, is the positive peer interactions.
I think that brings us to the end of questions for Baltimore Design School. So Angela, I'll turn it over to you to lead us forward.
Thank you.
Stacy? Oh, I'm up. I'm on.
Anybody whose line may be unmuted, ask that you just take a moment to mute your line. Thank you. Angela, you may be on mute. We're not hearing any sound on our end.
Sorry. Next, I want to call up City Springs, who's an elementary middle school. They're recommended for a 3-year renewal. They're effective in student achievement, financial management, and governance, and they're developing in climate. So let me invite the City Springs team to turn their cameras on.
Right, Rhonda's there. I assume Harold's on here too somewhere. Good evening, commissioners. I'm Laura Doherty. I'm the president of the Baltimore Curriculum Project.
Hi, good evening. I'm Harold Henry, the chief of schools, having a little technical issue with my camera, but I am here.
Hi, good evening, commissioners. I'm Rhonda Burketta, the very proud principal of City Springs Elementary School for the past 19 years. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you this evening. I want to start by saying I have much respect for this process. Angela Alvarez and her staff have worked hard to ensure that this is a rigorous but fair process. However, I am here tonight to share how the unprecedented challenges City Springs has faced over the past 3 years fall outside the bounds of what any rubric could fully capture, and to ask you to grant us more than a 3-year renewal. For decades, City Springs was at the heart of the Perkins Homes community, where 65% of our students resided. These families lived just steps away from the school, creating a vibrant and tightly knit relationship that went beyond academics. When students didn't come to school, we walked through the neighborhood and knocked on doors. I personally knocked, saying, "Let's go, get dressed, brush your teeth, we're going to school." This direct connection was our lifeline. The abrupt removal of all our Perkins families obviously had an impact on our enrollment, but I hope to help you fully understand how this equally impacted our student attendance and our family survey response rate in school year 21-22. Our school year 23-24, 90% favorability rating more accurately reflects our school's climate. When the Housing Authority relocated our families, they were moved all over the city. It was no longer possible for us to knock on doors. And when students were not coming to school, I called their parents to encourage them to enroll their children in the school where they were now living. But parents refused. They did not want to take their children out of City Springs, even though they had no transportation to bring them to school. They just loved City Springs. When it came time for the parent survey, we engaged our parents in every way we could to complete the survey, but we were challenged to engage them in school year 21-22. Between the pandemic and the relocation of our families, it is amazing that we still exist. I visited other cities in the country that received the same neighborhood grant and learned that the schools in those neighborhoods shut down during the relocation and reopened when their families returned. I was very afraid of that happening to us. But we have survived, and now our families are starting to move back. Our attendance is already improving. For example, our pre-K and 8th grade attendance rates in November last year were 85% and 87% respectively. This November, they each hit a high of pre-K 91% and 8th grade 92%. With our families moving back, we are about to face a new challenge: the significant increase in our enrollment over the next 2 years, and how we will manage this sudden growth. I would like us to be able to focus on this rather than on preparing for another charter renewal in just 3 years that would drain the time, energy, and resources we need to focus on supporting this growth. I respect there is a rubric for this process that must be applied fairly to everyone, but there is no way the rubric could take into consideration the out of the ordinary and extremely challenging circumstances that City Springs has faced. I am requesting, commissioners, that you consider how this very temporary, beyond our control situation has impacted our climate rating, and please grant us more than a 3-year renewal and give our community the stability we need at this time. City Springs is renowned for our positive climate and culture. I know in my heart and in the hearts of our families that if our community had not been displaced, we would not have received a developing rating for climate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Principal Riccetta. We appreciate your work and your service and leadership, as well as the entire community at City Springs. Let me ask my fellow board commissioners if they have any questions they'd like to lift up this evening for the City Springs team.
Of course, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay here. And I understand the challenges of displacement that you have confronted in the progression of your school. But and I see that, you know, moving into you're the feeder of many middle schools. Okay. And the challenge usually comes right there in that transition in from fifth to sixth, right? How do you prepare and with the students that you currently have for making that crossing that bridge, because it is a bridge to cross? How do you prepare them? Because as we look at climate and culture, sometimes we look at it from a snapshot point of view rather than looking at it from a developmental point of view. And I just wanted to know, how do you strengthen that transition within your school, because you're feeding a lot of schools?
So are you asking about how we transition our fifth graders to middle school?
Right. How do you make sure that they carry forward, you know, those key elements that you want them to bring into this new environment? Because middle school, I teach middle school, so I know that struggle. Okay, so that's a struggle. And so how do you create that bridge for them? Because I think that speaks more to your climate and culture than the incidences of or the impact of incidental displacement.
So yes, thank you for the question. And you're right, middle school is challenging. I taught middle school myself. And so I know. But we are a pre-K to 8 school. So most of our fifth graders remain at City Springs. We have very few that leave us to go to a middle school somewhere else in the city. And we also at City Springs, we view our elementary school as pre-K through 6th. And our middle school is 7th and 8th grade. And we are very intentional about not having our middle school and our elementary school exist in 2 silos. We are a pre-K through 8th grade school. And so the transition for our students from 6th grade to 7th grade is very smooth because they're not really leaving and starting somewhere new. And we also have middle school. We have a very strong middle school team, and those teachers already know the students before they become their students. We have middle school teachers who visit the elementary classrooms during their planning time and make an intentional effort to get to know those children before they end up in front of them.
So therefore, speaking to your climate and culture, then seeing that it is contained, okay, how do you validate that movement of, or that loss of foot grip on climate and culture? Because that's where the problem usually exists, right in that area. Question: where do you see that slippage?
So so the issue with our developing rating for climate was more related to our attendance rate, and also for our parent survey in school year 2021, we weren't able to meet the response rate. So we got a 50% like default rating. But if you look at our climate survey responses for the last 2 years, we received an 87% and a 92%. So the issue is for the climate, because we have a very positive culture at City Springs. We do a lot. We've been a restorative school. I think we were the first restorative school in the state, I believe, to implement restorative practices. So we have a very mature implementation of restorative practices. Our teachers are highly trained. Our culture is very positive. The challenge for us has been our attendance rate because of not having our families living near us. We have a very low suspension rate as well, if you look at that.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatte. Are there any additional questions from my board colleagues this evening?
I have a quick one from it's kind of speaking to this fact of like that as your community is returning, that is going to cause some infrastructure strain. And so you spoke a little bit about this, is that is kind of what the school needs to be prioritizing. And I think thinking about what does that look like from a 3-year plan, and that if we're giving 5 years of runway, kind of what's the strategy, realizing both on demographics and returning population that could be a real challenge given you're still going to be in an interim space for a good chunk of this time. So kind of what are the needs there? How are you approaching that from a strategy standpoint?
So we've been down this road before. You know, one of the fortunate things that I've been at City Springs for a very long time, and there was I don't recall the year, maybe Laura will recall, where there was a school up the street from us that closed. And originally we were supposed to only get about 70 students, and we actually ended up getting close to 200, and it happened very quickly. We utilized restorative practices. We had we had several meetings with parents and gave them an opportunity to come to our school, sit in a circle, express their concerns for their children having to start at a new school. They were worried about them walking to school, and we actually were able to really address and resolve some of their concerns because we gave them that opportunity to share them with us. And we also, I know instructionally, I believe that having teachers who are highly trained and not very green, and you know, that it's important who we put in front of our students. So my plan would be to start building our staff prior to the students coming. And, you know, we have done in the past, we have had situations where we have co-teachers in a classroom and maybe have a experienced teacher with a new teacher and give that teacher a year of working in a co-teaching situation before they're on their own. I imagine that we're going to have to start doing a lot of that as we prepare for the additional students to come, because one of my priorities is to make sure that we have highly trained teachers to receive all of the new students that we expect to get.
And just a quick follow-up, like I think from a personnel standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. What about from like a infrastructure and facilities stance?
So so that is something that I'm actually concerned about. I've been talking to Angela Alvarez and her team about what is the plan, because our current structure is limited. We had over 800 students before all this movement started happening, and we had to rent space in the vacant building across the street to accommodate all of those students. But that's not going to be an option because they're going to be building a new school in that space. That building is going to be torn down. So we may need trailers, and you know, I don't know if the funding is going to be available for that, but that is something that we've talked about. Certainly, you know, I was talking with someone today, and when our enrollment started to grow previously, I found myself walking around the school all the time looking at what space could I turn into a classroom? Do we need that book room? Can I make that a classroom? And, you know, I imagine that we'll be doing a lot of that again. I will say that we do, you know, our enrollment now is we started the beginning of the year with like 416 students. We now have 495. So just since the school year started, our enrollment has increased. But 416 was very low for this current building. So fortunately, we do have a little room to grow right now, but eventually, depending on how fast they all come back, it is going to be a challenge, but I'm sure that we will figure it out.
Yeah, can I ask a very quick question?
Please.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and Principal Riquette, I appreciate all the work that you've done over the years. I'm very sympathetic to this argument that this big population change has had a big impact on your retention, cohort retention, and on chronic absenteeism. That makes a lot of sense to me. What I'm trying to weigh in this request for a longer extension is the student achievement data. And so, I'm seeing in absolute terms 3 ratings of developing, and in growth percentile, a not effective. And so I guess my question to you is, if if we took away, or if we said that the cohort retention and the chronic absenteeism, if we said those were effective, just for argument's sake, is your contention that this data would merit a 5-year renewal, or are you saying that the disruption has also led to some lower student achievement than you would have expected?
So, I think that has some impact, but I will say that our overall academic rating was effective. So if our climate rating was effective, we would have 3 effective ratings, which I believe would qualify us for more than a 3-year renewal. I think it's the one developing in climate that is preventing us from having an effect, more than a 3-year renewal. I do recognize the areas in our data that you're looking at that need improvement, and we already are improving in that area. Are the difference in the mean scores for us from 2023 to 2024 is significant. And we intend to continue that strong progress. We are one of the 10 schools that moved this year from a 2-star to a 3-star rating. So there is momentum that's happening here at City Springs with our academic progress. And I feel confident that we're having a good year for our
Thank you
academic.
for that answer. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any additional questions before we move forward this evening?
Yes.
Mr. Canada, go ahead.
Yeah, I just really want to ask Ms. Doherty,
Yes.
because it always flows from the top. I wanted to know your definition of climate and culture and whether or not we're meeting that. I mean, in your viewpoint of climate and culture, because that is really your concept is really what's going to drive overall what that looks like.
Mhm.
And thank you. You
Thank
understand
you.
what I'm asking.
Thank you for the question. I think anybody who spends any time at City Springs would not argue with the extraordinary climate and culture that exists within the halls and the classrooms. You can walk through at any time of day and you will see classroom after classroom of students on task, learning, engaged, teachers who are exceptionally positive. We spend so much time and energy on making sure that we're paying attention to the positives, and that's what you get more of. I beg any of you who wants to come and see for yourself to come visit City Springs, and you will walk away with no doubt that they have an extraordinary climate and culture. When you dig into the ratings and why they got the developing, you can see why. It was attendance, chronic absenteeism, and that parent rating that's a default. So I understand how we got to a developing, but I think when we saw that initially, we were all a little surprised, because the climate and culture at City Springs is something we've taken pride in for a very long time.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any further questions before we move forward? All right. Thank you so much to the City Springs team. It was nice to see you, and we appreciate the opportunity to connect with you this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate you as well.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is on.
Okay, next, we are going to bring up Furman L. Templeton Preparatory Academy. They are an elementary school. They have been rated effective in all three categories: student achievement, school climate, financial management, and governance, and are recommended for a 5-year renewal. Furman team, please turn your cameras on.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Everybody hear me? Oh, good evening.
Welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners, Dr. Sanalistas and Miss Angela Alvarez. I'm Rosalind Lockwood, and I am the Executive Director at Furman L. Templeton Preparatory Academy. And with me this evening, I have Principal LaDeja Ballard and Assistant Principal Randolph Scott. And on behalf of the Furman L. Templeton Board of Directors and our entire school community, we would like to thank you for the 5-year renewal recommendation. As we all know, each renewal season is an opportunity for us to reflect on and celebrate the progress we have achieved while still reaffirming our shared dedication to the success of all of our students. We acknowledge that there is still important work ahead of us in areas of improvement or areas we can still grow in. Our focus remains on deepening our impact to ensure that every student reaches its fullest potential, both academically and personally. This progress and future success is only possible through the dedication of our students, staff, parents, partners, and last but not least, our school leadership. Principal Ballard and AP Scott believe in our vision and mission, and they embody it every day as they continue to guide and inspire our school community. We are blessed to have them. Once again, I thank you for the recommendation, and we look forward to making the most of this renewed opportunity to grow and serve. I will now turn it over to Principal Ballard. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Again, as Ms. Lockwood has already stated, thank you for recommending a 5-year renewal for Furman L. Templeton Preparatory Academy. The renewal process has always given us another opportunity to use qualitative and quantitative data to assess the quality of systems, instruction, and service to our students and their families. During our last renewal process, we were granted 3 years with an expectation to improve academics in a way that reflected the care and the love that was so visible to those who walked through our doors. We recognize the importance of increasing overall school-wide attendance, decreasing chronic absenteeism, and redefining student engagement. By improving instruction specifically around claim writing, problem solving, and student collaboration, overall proficiency rates and growth performance improved over the course of the last contract. A focus on classroom observations enriched our process as well as our cycles of continuous improvement by providing real-time insights into instructional practices and student engagement. These observations have been intentional and focused, ensuring that teachers receive specific feedback that is actionable and provides an opportunity to refine their methods. Instructional coaching through out of the thinking distributive leadership strategies also played a critical role as we were able to offer personalized support to educators. Through collaborative coaching sessions Teachers gained strategies, resources, and guidance that empowered them to implement meaningful changes in their classrooms. Additionally, ongoing professional development aligned directly with the needs identified through data and observations supported the process of improvement. Our professional development offerings, including workshops, peer learning opportunities, and specialized training, all designed to enhance instructional practices and address specific challenges. Over the span of our contract, as we continue to integrate these components into our cycles of improvement, we saw teachers improve their process of reflecting and adjusting and overall growth at every level. This approach helped foster accountability and collective responsibility, ultimately ensuring that we provided an exceptional educational experience for all students. If granted the full renewal, we will continue to focus on student-centered learning and maximize the positive outcomes of best practices, stakeholder relationships, and collaborative partnerships. Thank you again for the consideration. This leadership opportunity to serve and support has been nothing short of a beautiful experience. I hope you all have a good night.
Thank you so much, Principal Ballard. We appreciate that. Open it up for my board colleagues for questions this evening. I see a hand from Commissioner Kenyatta Bay.
Sorry. Hello. How you doing? And having taught at Fermanagh Templeton at one point, I am really in love with this place. But I've got a real quick question. And you have painted a beautiful picture of where we are. But I'm more curious about your next steps. Where do you see your areas of growth and your potential to improve? And that, I mean, anything that you wish you can reach for and grab right now.
Instructional focuses and improvement, particularly in the area of math, improving our overall Maryland school star rating, and then increasing achievement across content areas for not just growth at our proficiency rate for students across grade levels. As we send students out of Furman as fifth graders, I would love to see ideally 30% and beyond in the next 2 years, and then maxing out as high as possible to 70, anywhere between 70 to 90% for student achievement. So in response to your question specifically, we are continuing to focus on overall proficiency rates, starting with math because that is an area of deficit, as well as improving our overall Maryland school star rating.
Well, that's, and I really appreciate that. But the question is more so because you draw from a community that is impacted by the return of these individuals to it and helping it grow. What do you see as something that Fermanagh Templeton can provide to that community to help its growth? And thank you.
Okay. We would like to see students actively apply their learning across subject areas to become not only critical thinkers in their classrooms, but critical thinkers and problem solvers in their communities. The most ideal situation that we are hoping to see as an outcome of our instruction is a constant return of students who matriculate from Fermanagh Templeton and move through continued years of their education, but come back into the community because they have received further education and continue to become productive citizens that they could then use to serve and build their local communities. Thank you.
Any additional questions for our colleagues over at Fermanagh Templeton? And I'll just close with I have had the pleasure of seeing Fermanagh Templeton grow from last renewal to this one. So it's good to see the continued trends upward at Fermanagh Templeton. So thank you guys so much for coming this evening and sharing more about your story. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good
And
evening.
you as well.
Thank you. All right, Angela, our next school.
Yep, so next we're going to bring up Frederick Elementary School. It is developing in student achievement, effective in school climate and financial management and governance, as recommended for a 3-year renewal with conditions to improve academic performance. So I'm going to invite the Frederick team to turn on their cameras.
Okay. Petra, are you there?
Here.
Oh, I see you right there.
Here. Good evening.
Welcome.
You want to begin?
Are we
Yeah,
ready?
yours. Yep,
Yes,
yes,
Oh,
we're
okay. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening about Frederick Elementary School. I'd also like to thank Dr. Santelises' team led by Angela Alvarez for the review of our application and the recommendation to operate for an additional 3-year term. My name is Tetra Jackson. Between 2017 and 2022, I served as the assistant principal. Since last school year, I've served as the principal. And I'm joined this evening by 2 of my colleagues.
Laura Doherty again, president of the Baltimore Curriculum Project.
Yay.
Good evening again, Harold Henry, Chief of Schools with Baltimore Curriculum Project and former principal at Frederick Elementary School.
Frederick Elementary School is a member of the Baltimore Curriculum Project who believes in educating and developing future leaders to use wisdom in solving complex problems and leading change for themselves and their community. This belief is grounded in our pillar values, wisdom, leadership, and community. The core of our practice is based on the proven methods associated with direct instruction for building literacy, competency, and restorative practices for building the social and emotional efficacy of our community. We began as a conversion charter in August of 2017, combining 2 of the lowest performing schools in the state. Within just 3 years, we were released from school improvement status by the MSDE and have continued to evolve into an effective learning community. During our last term renewal in 2022, we were noted as a school showing potential and momentum toward raising student achievement prior to the pandemic. However, the lingering and persistent adverse effects of the extended school closures due to COVID, decreasing population in our enrollment area, high rates of mobility, and chronic absenteeism have slowed our momentum. The percentage of students directly certified for free and reduced meals has historically averaged in the low to mid 80s over the contract term, but grew to 92% for the previous year. Simultaneously, we were developing our practice around meeting the needs of our ML community, which grew from 5% to 12% in just 1 year last year. Frederick resides in the city's 9th district, which has been challenged by blight, lack of development, lack of sustainable housing, and decreasing population for a decade. This has had a direct impact on our enrollment and attendance. Although our data reflect low proficiency in reading and math, which supported our developing rating, we are trending upward. Our reading and math percentages increased 5 and 3 percentage points respectively since our return to in-person learning. While challenges facing our learning community are complex, we have demonstrated our ability to overcome and thrive in that context in the past, and we are committed to demonstrating the same in the next contract term if given an opportunity. Moving forward, we plan to continue to implement strategies that are working for us, such as, but are not limited to, intentional recruitment and hiring of certified teachers, having coaches dedicated to support ELA and math planning, data analysis, and instruction, working with 2 national experts to augment coaching, including 1 focused on the development of our special education team, having our ELA coaches provide reading intervention for struggling groups of students several times a week, adding a second person in every ELA classroom to support an additional dose of reading for our below-level readers, having our math coach attend district-sponsored Reveal professional development sessions, providing out-of-school time professional development opportunities for our staff around lesson planning that is aligned with the instructional framework, the curriculum, and the Common Core state standards, and having an additional staff member to support attendance and chronic absenteeism. Upcoming strategies to be implemented over the life of the term include, but are not limited to, having an ESOL para to support multilingual learners and English language development, hiring a math intervention teacher, and purchasing a vehicle to support all of our attendance initiatives. I'm excited to share that we have already begun on the path to increased effectiveness, with our current overall school-wide attendance from August to November increasing 1 percentage point higher than last year at 84%, and an increased number of reading groups.
And
starting
I
on
apologize,
grade
that
level.
is time for your presentation. We appreciate
That
it.
was my last
Thank you.
sentence. Thank you.
Why don't you wrap that up? Right, we'll make sure we get that in since you
You got it?
no, go ahead, finish that
So I
up.
was just saying, also, we started with an increased number of reading groups starting on grade level this year from 39% to 55% of our students on grade level or above. Thank you for that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Principal Jackson. We appreciate it. And I turn to my board colleagues for questions they may have for the Frederick Elementary team. Am I missing anybody's hand? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Principal Jackson, for the presentation. And just in case I missed it, the recommendation here is for 3-year conditional. Do you agree with that recommendation? Or are you asking for something different?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Typically, when we see a recommendation with conditions like this indicates, there's a lot of work to be done at the school, as you highlighted. And I think that's something really important for my board colleagues to really keep in mind, but recognize that, you've highlighted, lifted up some of the areas that you want to kind of double down on, make significant investments in.
Yes.
But, these things, when we look at conditions, gives us an opportunity to ensure that we're reviewing on a much more regular cadence in terms of the progress in this respect. And so I think this is something for us to kind of keep in mind, and we do appreciate the information you shared on the strategies you want to employ.
For sure.
Vice Chair Parker, did you have, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I did. I'm sorry. I'm having an issue with my hand feature. Thank you for your presentation. I had a question. You named a number of ways you would like to improve over the next 3 years. Do you feel like you have the budget and the resources for all of the coaches and everything that you named?
Absolutely. We do. And
Okay.
being with the charter, they definitely support us wherever is needed. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions for my board colleagues this evening?
Having problems with my hand also, just real quick question. Community support for you and moving forward, increasing those items that we're looking at particularly. Do you have a strong community support? I know that that you're impacted by location, but still, do you have that? And how do you plan to maximize that?
So we are working with our community school coordinator in partnership with Bon Secours, who is developing a robust program around engaging our families and our communities. He started a series called A Day to Chat with our Spanish-speaking families to engage them. There's a big language barrier, and we hold meetings with them to get their ideas, their concerns, so that they can contribute to the learning environment. We have A Few Good Men, which is a group dedicated to our fathers to be invested, to go on field trips, to spend time with their
sorry about that feedback.
children. Yes. A parent leadership group we are developing with our community school coordinator to get parents to give ideas for programming that they'd like to see, anything they like about the school, anything that they would like to change about the school. So we have different programs to engage our families, working with our community school coordinator at Bon Secours.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anything additional from our board colleagues? Hearing none, I'd like to thank the team for Frederick Elementary.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
See you again soon.
Alrighty. Angela, where do we go next?
Yep, and so next, we're going to bring up the Green School of Baltimore. They are also an elementary school. They're effective in student achievement and climate. They're developing in the finance and governance, inclusive of a continued financial review. The recommendation is for a 3-year renewal with conditions around expanding the school size and improving financial capacity of the school. So with that, I'm going to invite the Green School to turn on their cameras and come forward.
Thank you, Angela. Good evening. My name is Kate Prim, and I'm the founding principal of the Green School of Baltimore. I am joined tonight by Mary Bushell, our board president, Tanika Davis, our board vice president, and Paul Rashar, a GSB parent and volunteer. We want to begin by thanking you for this opportunity to discuss our renewal recommendation with you tonight. We appreciate the recognition of our school's strengths in academics and climate, and the ratings of effective in these areas, as well as in operator capacity and strategic leadership and governance. After reviewing our results, analyzing district feedback, and talking to stakeholders, we are respectfully requesting that this Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners extend the renewal term to a period of 5 years instead of 3 years. From our school's founding, we have been intentional and successful with our design. We established our school in a neighborhood that would provide equitable access for families, and we limited our enrollment to ensure that we could meet the needs of each child. Our students have consistently earned scores that raise the district averages, while we remain committed to closing the achievement gap for all students. Could you put up the next slide, please? Our community's passion for our programming is reflected in our cohort retention rate, our family surveys results, and the 5 Essentials survey results. Next slide, please. In addition to our academic achievement and school culture, we have always demonstrated financial stability. We have been cautious about how we spend and save our dollars, as evidenced by our history of unqualified audits and a strong and growing cash position. Next slide, please. In this slide, you can see the growth in our cash position as reported in our annual audits from $351,000 in 2020 to $542,000 in 2023, as well as our current cash position of $799,000. We understand that under the blueprint, financial allotments will change, but we are confident in our cash projections and our ability to continue to manage our funding in an effective, meaningful, and fiscally responsible way. We understand and appreciate the district's feedback about our size and potential for growth moving forward. We recognize that based on our strong financials, academic achievement, and student wait list, it appears that we are well positioned to expand. Our board of directors, in fact, as part of our strategic planning process, already has begun to broach the topic of potential growth while asking the school's leadership to be strategic and thoughtful about sustainability over the long term. While we are happy to continue our discussion with the school district, our desire is to be intentional about sustainability, of which potential growth is just one part, for our children, families, and the school community. Such intentionality would require more than 3 years. Next slide, please. The Green School has been a partner with the school district, has always been a partner with the school district. We have worked diligently to ensure that our school continues to add value to the district's portfolio. And we are respectfully requesting a 5-year renewal so that we may continue to build on our strengths, address our challenges, and continue to be the school that our families want and our children deserve. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me open this up to our board colleagues for questions they may have for our colleagues over at the Green School.
Chair, I have a question.
Sure.
Good evening. This is Kalila Slater Harrington. I'm curious about, you talked a lot about intentionality and keeping the schools small so that you can make sure that each student gets the supports that they need. At the same time, the district is pushing for growth for Green Street. Can you tell me both about your intention around growth, how you'll do that, and also maintain the supports that you have provided to date?
Yes. As we think about considering growth, it starts with looking at the feasibility of growth and figuring out what that would look like for us and doing it slowly and carefully. When I think about when we started, it took us 3 years from inception of idea to actually opening our doors, and we opened very small. We did it in a small way so that we could grow 1 grade per year until we were at our full capacity, so that we were taking on what we knew that we could deliver, so that we could grow in a way that all of our students were receiving what they need. And so in our eyes, growth is careful, it's well considered, and it has a strategic plan around it. I don't know if it.
And I just want to add that I think, just like, again, to the point about the time that it would take us to scale up. I mean, I know it seems like maybe we're well positioned to do that, but also just to highlight things like that, we do have constraints in our building. We don't have room currently, so it would require a lot of pieces falling into place and us putting those pieces in place. And so we've already started that conversation. Kate has already sort of engaged with a consultant to sort of help us through that feasibility phase. But that is where, it is like a big, we are still in an early stage of that.
Excellent, thank you. Are there additional questions from my board colleagues? One I just want to touch on right quick. You touched on just some of the challenges that you guys may be focusing on. And specifically, I'm hoping you can give us just a sense of your programming.
Was that your butt?
Madam, may we have you?
Gee, lady, sounds open.
One of our Zoom open.
You weren't on mute. I just checked. That's so embarrassing.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm hoping that you could touch a little bit on like your services on students with disabilities in terms of what that zero-in focus in terms of ensuring that those students have an equal and chance to really have an exceptional education. And you're gonna have to unmute again because we had to mute everybody.
Sorry, thank you for that cueing. I didn't realize I had muted or gotten muted. When considering services for students with disabilities, this is an area that has always been an area of strength for us in terms of our student performance, in terms of our audits with the district, in terms of student attendance and chronic absence rate and suspension rate has always been an area of strength for us. And it's an area of intense need. So in recent years, we have expanded our staffing model. We are small, so we had one person who was both delivering services and providing serving in the role of the chair of the child study team. We have expanded that team to build out the ability to provide differentiation at both ends of the spectrum. They are our exceptional learners team, and they address both children who get additional services or supports through an IEP, but children who need extension and additional challenges, acceleration through GAL. And so that's been a big investment for us, building the redundancy into the system, building the capacity, and so that we can provide more supports for our students.
Thank you so much. There are no additional questions. I'd like to thank our colleagues from the Green School this evening, and we'll look forward to connecting with you at a later juncture. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Angela, where do we go next?
All right, next we're going to have Govins Elementary School come up. They were effective in both student achievement and financial management and governance. They're developing in climate, and they're recommended for a 3-year renewal. So the Govins team can come up, and then you can begin as soon as you turn on your cameras.
Okay, Bernarda, yeah, I see you. Okay.
here.
Good evening again, commissioners. I'm still Laura Doherty, president of the Baltimore Curriculum Project.
And I am still Harold Henry, Chief of Schools with the Baltimore Curriculum Project.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Bernarda Quar, principal of Govins Elementary. I stand before you with immense pride and gratitude for the opportunity to share with you the extraordinary efforts and achievements of the students and staff at Govins Elementary. The Govins community is excited about beginning another term in partnership with Baltimore Curriculum Project. Our staff, students, and families are enthusiastic about continuing our work to support the growth of our students and to address and exceed the overall reflections provided by the Renewal team. At Govins, we strive to increase the academic achievement of all students in partnership with the entire community by ensuring all students receive quality education and the tools to become productive, responsible citizens. We also strive to create an environment that is safe, nurturing, and committed to students reaching their fullest potential. This focus has led to many of our greatest accomplishments that include 85% of our certified teachers have been at Govins for 8 or more years. Overall student attendance for the 23-24 school year was 91.3%. The first years back from the pandemic, we had an intense focus on foundational skills so that all of our students could access grade level material. As a result, we now have a vast majority of students on or above grade level. The percentage of students who are on grade level in each band ranges from 48% to 93%. In the last 8 years, our STEM-based after-school program has been awarded first place in multiple categories at the Baltimore City Regional Tournament. As a result, our Govins robotics team has qualified to go to the state championship the last 8 years. Incidentally, our robotics team are in the category that includes only the top 20% of teams in Maryland. I would like to now reflect on the recommendations of the Renewal team. In the area of the school's academic success and effective instruction, we are pleased with our MCAP growth in math. As we have been able to move many students to grade level and beyond, we anticipate similar growth in ELA due to our refined focus on higher order thinking and increasing students' writing skills. Next, in the area of school climate, it was surprising to see so few responses of the family survey, given the 111 responses we submitted the previous year. Additionally, in the area of cohort retention, we were greatly affected by our move to and from a swing space during the course of the contract. Although our number of suspensions has increased by 5 since school year 23-24, despite numerous in-house interventions, at least 11 of those suspensions were for students with repeated offenses that exhibited dangerous behavior. The Renewal report notes a matter of compliance and process management for students with disability. In response to these concerns, during the course of the contract, we have moved from a part-time to a full-time IEP chair and hired additional special education resource teachers using general funds. Our IEP chair will conduct quarterly mock audits to ensure consistent implementation of processes and documentation. Lastly, in the area of the school following sufficient financial management and governance practices, we are appreciative of the great management of our charter operator, Baltimore Curriculum Project. Baltimore Curriculum Project supports the school with effective management of grants and school funds. Our charter operator will continue to work consistently to meet all state and federal reporting requirements, as well as central, district, and federal obligations as to not receive any notices of concern. As I'm sure you're aware, it is impossible to share what Govins is and does for its school community in 4 minutes. However, I hope I have provided a bit of insight into the work that we do and are so very proud of. Govins is not just a place of learning, but a place where individuals thrive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the presentation, Ms. Scott. I open this up to my board colleagues for any questions they may have. Okay. Do you pronounce your last name Kwa?
Kwa.
Kwa. I apologize.
That's okay.
Any questions? Hearing.
You touched on this, sorry, you touched on this briefly, but maybe just a little bit more in terms of special education, talking about looking at how you're dealing with compliance outside of the classroom, like what kind of supports are happening inside the classroom to support students?
Well, like I mentioned before, we have 2 special ed resource teachers who both push in and pull out. So that allows for supports in the classroom. Our IEP chair, not only does she maintain records, she also pushes into the classroom and supports teachers with their implementation and providing accommodations. In addition to that, our social worker and our school counselor do the same.
Thank you. Anything additional, colleagues? Board colleagues? All right. Well, thank the entire team over at Govins for joining us this evening and for your presentation. Thank you so much for all you do on behalf of our kids.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you very much.
Angela, where do we go next?
Yep. So next, we're going to bring up Connections, which is a community-based art school. It's a middle high. Connections is developing in student achievement and climate, effective in financial management and governance. They're recommended for a 3-year renewal with conditions to improve academic performance. So with that, I'm going to invite the Connections team to go ahead and turn on their cameras, and they can begin when they're up.
All right, good afternoon, Board of Commissioners, Dr. Santelises, Angela Alvarez, and other chief executive officers. I'm excited today. I'm excited for all of Baltimore City with the star rating news. Again, this is not a charter versus traditional thing with me. We're all one school district, and that deserves a lot of credit what we're doing. We're moving. And Connections is a school that moved this star rating as well, from a 1 to a 2-star, and we're going to move from a 2 to a 3 and then a 3 to a 4. But I'm extremely excited about where we are going. I want to thank the Board of Commissioners and the Office of this for our renewal recommendation with conditions. I couldn't agree more with Commissioner Sally when he says with the conditions, it gives us room for growth, and it also makes sure we're not complacent on where we're going. And so, albeit I would want to argue some things, but I'm also excited about the opportunity to get better. Next slide, please. At Connections, we cultivate academic and artistic excellence and cultural identity in all students. We're an art school that takes kids as they are. Kids don't audition like at BSA. We take them with no artistic experience, and we cultivate them at Connections. And we've done so for over 20 years now. I believe we might be one of the, if not the oldest charter school in existence. I've been humbled and blessed to be able to teach, educate, lead at this institution for now over 20 years. I now have other generations coming in of students that I taught. I have their students, their kids at our school. And so I'm just blessed and humbled. Next slide, please. So since our last renewal, we've been at work. We've partnered with an educational consultant. Like I said, I've been there a long time. And so it did not hurt to get another set of eyes on the school to point out and identify some areas where we need improvement that I might not have seen. And so we've partnered with an outside educational consultant, New Foundations. And with them, we have implemented an instructional support system to help us look at data, implement standards-based instruction, to unpack the gaps in the core curriculum so that we make sure students are seeing the questions that they're going to be assessed on in April and May. And so working with them, we've improved our instructional practices. We have weekly collaborative planning, PD every week. One of the biggest pieces coming out of the pandemic is paying attention to the social and emotional piece. Having a dedicated wholeness specialist and a community coordinator has been invaluable. That is a direct reason why we received the mayor's award for reducing chronic absenteeism by 25 percentage points. It's also a reason why we have increased our daily attendance. We were first in the district for increasing our daily attendance by 13.7 percentage points. That is also directly related to using our funds, our Title IV funds, having a dedicated student support specialist to each grade level to help with attendance, help with making sure students have what they need so that they can come to school and be prepared to engage. Next slide, please. Just some quick data points. 60%, I wish we could have used this in our renewal, but we use MAP, NWEA, and 60% of our middle school students met or exceeded their projected RIT in math. And some students exceeded their projected growth by as much as 87% in math. Next slide, please. And this is just a visual of it. Next slide, please. And ELA, 50% of our middle school students met or exceeded their projected RIT, and some exceeded projection by as much as 72%. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. MCAP growth. So right here, we see the upward trend. These are the percentage of developing students who are 10 scale points or fewer from being proficient on MCAP. So we believe the work we're putting in is showing positive results. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Graduation, college, and career. This was a big area for us last renewal. Last year, 100% of our students were placed in college, whether 2-year institutions, community college, or 4-year institutions. This year already, we have 20, I think close to 20 or more of our students who have already received 4-year acceptances. And so we are investing in our college and career part of the school. We have a dedicated college and career specialist. We also have increased our AP course offerings with AP Lit, AP Lang. And so we're focused in that area as well. Next slide, please.
That is time.
Thank you. Thank you.
you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brooks, for the presentation. Before we actually open this up to board colleagues, Angela, could you go through potentially what the conditions are for this school that the system is proposing?
Yeah, we're still working through the exact language, but it would be to improve, to have mostly developing our higher ratings, developing effective ratings in the academic section the next time they're up for renewal.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I see a hand from Commissioner Kenyatta Bay.
Yes, question that I have, because Connections does deal with, I mean, one of the two main areas of not only, innovation, but collaboration. And so therefore, culture and climate becomes a very important aspect of that. Where do you see, and I understood and I heard that you said there were certain things that you would question in the evaluation of Connections, but I wanted to know, where do you see your growth in culture and climate, because that becomes key in putting forward scholars that can much better collaborate in moving forward. Thank you.
That's a great question, Commissioner. I think just the continuity of enrollment, making sure students want to be engaged in the arts. I think, as a school and a choice system, sometimes we get students that don't know they're coming to an art school, and sometimes that can impact culture. And so we want to make sure that students know the course offerings we have in the arts and that they want to be invested in the arts, because we know that if we are invested in programming, then we are more likely to abide by the rules, regulations, processes, and procedures of the institution. It worked for me when I was at Morgan. It wasn't until I found my major that I got in line. And so it's no different from our children, and so I think that's a big piece of it. We've been consistently over enrolled. We've never had in 20 years have a problem meeting enrollment. I think it's because of the arts programming. But I think we just have to keep that continuity. We have to build relationships with the feeder schools, make sure we're visiting schools, letting them know what we do, who we are. And I think that's a big piece of it, Commissioner.
But now you said that you had some things that you may question in the evaluation process, right? What were those things that you?
So when I say question, I mean I think we've made some big progress. One of the slides that was left off is we were ranked first or third or second with MCAT performance in high school ELA. Like we've made some significant gains in the district with attendance, chronic absenteeism, and our MCAT performance. And so I just think like when I think Commissioner Lallinger said, if I'm pronouncing it right earlier, asking the question about what achievement, like what would we do if we had 5 years? I think just sometimes that gives us more room to do the work as opposed to looking over our shoulder. But I get what Commissioner Sally said also, though. It makes sure we keep our foot on the gas. So I'm not questioning it. I respect the process. We own the work that we have to do. We still have work to do with math. Yet our students are performing on MAP assessment in math. We have to figure out how to get them to perform on that state assessment. I do know that what we do artistically, if our kids can do that with singing, dancing, West African dance, West African drumming, that they can perform as well. We just need to figure out the key.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Any additional questions from my board colleagues?
Yes, if I can, Chair. The question that I really want to highlight is around the data-driven decisions that you guys have been making have created some notable improvements. When we look at your graduation rates and we look at attendance, how are you doing that, and can we continue to scale that effort in the other places? But I want to start off by first congratulating you, as we did at the beginning of the school year, because you're doing something that we're trying to find ways to do across the district.
Thank you, Commissioner Mohammed. Yes, it can continue. Two, it's just we have to continue to be learners. I think sometimes, and this is from my seat, and I said this to Dr. Santelises when she visited in the spring, is that I need to own what I don't know and be okay with seeking out other school leaders who are doing. When I hear the principal from the design school talk about what his artists look like as graduates, like I need to pick his brain, like collaborate so that it continues and find the best practices that these other school leaders are implementing and be okay with what I don't know and just getting better. And so, yes, we are paying attention to data, but we also have to get better at paying attention to data and being consistent to utilizing the data. So that's a great question, Commissioner Mohammed.
Thank you, Commissioner Mohammed. Any additional questions? Hearing none, I'd like to thank you, Ms. Brooks, for joining us and for the Connections team for the hard work that you guys are doing.
Thank you, Commissioner Sally.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Angela, what's school's next?
Yep, so next I'm going to invite Baltimore Montessori Public Charter, which is an elementary middle school. The school has a developing and student achievement, effective in climate and financial management and governance. They're recommended for 3-year renewal with conditions to maintain their current enrollment and not continue with a previous expansion plan. With that, I'm going to invite the Baltimore Montessori team to come forward.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Baltimore City Board Commissioners. I'm Mike Walton, a founder, alumni, parent, and current board chair of Baltimore Montessori Public Charter School, which has been serving Baltimore since 2008. Our mission is to provide high-quality Montessori education to all children, regardless of income, from 3-year-old pre-K to 8th grade. We are proud of our progress under this contract term, including our strategic plan, and we look forward to continuing our work. And now I will turn it over to Maria.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Maria Abdurrahim, and I am the President of the Family School Alliance. This year, we made significant progress in reinforcing our community and prioritizing student wellness through impactful partnerships. With full Title I and concentration on poverty funding, we work with Elevate Baltimore to provide tutoring, mentoring, and after-school opportunities. Since last school year, we also established the FSA, reconnecting with 174 families. Our monthly meetings now have an average attendance of 58 members, reflecting our commitment to working together. Thank you. I will now turn it over to Meg.
Thank you, Maria. Good evening, Commissioners. If you would move to the next slide, please. And one more. Good evening again. I'm Meg Renard, Executive Director of Baltimore Montessori, Inc. Over the past term, we partnered with city schools to expand enrollment by over 30%, adding 160 students. We prioritized early education to support strong outcomes and align with state efforts to expand pre-K. The expansion work has ended, and after an internal review of data, along with staff and family input, and reviewing our facility capacity, we are pleased to see that City Schools has agreed with us to keep our enrollment at or just below our current enrollment of 603. This will allow us to meet the needs of our community for this upcoming term. We are not about growing for growth's sake. We are focused on growing our current students. During this term, we also secured a $500,000 grant from the Emeril Lagasse Foundation. We also made facility upgrades, improved academic programming by adding Algebra 1, added more time for mentoring, and started a partnership with the University of Delaware. In addition, our middle school is a candidate for the International Baccalaureate Program. We also launched a new equity audit and strengthened data use to inform instructional decisions, all while staying true to our mission. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Carrie Ann.
Thank you, Meg. Good evening. Next slide, please. Good evening, Commissioners. I am Carrie Ann Malcolm, Principal of Baltimore Montessori Public Charter. As we reflect on our progress, we're seeing promising results, but recognize that we have a lot more to do. For instance, our pre-K students who attend for 1 to 2 years showed 81% readiness on the kindergarten readiness assessment compared to 62% of those who did not attend our school. For Black African American students, the rate was 75%. This highlights the importance of early enrollment and narrowing the achievement gaps. We're also making progress on our attendance, nearing pre-pandemic levels and addressing chronic absenteeism. We know that we have gaps in our data. Our main focus is accelerating academic outcomes and closing the performance gap, particularly for our Black African American students and those from economically disadvantaged families. We have identified 5 key strategies to guide our efforts. These initiatives are already in motion, as seen by our increase in our star rating. With strengthening our community, we're confident in our ability to deliver our mission and achieve equitable success for all students. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the presentation this evening. And before we also begin here, I believe, Angela, we highlighted a renewal with conditions as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, with the condition just to maintain their current enrollment inclusive of their early learning grades. Sorry, I had an issue, my PowerPoint crashed. So I'm working on it back in, but yes.
Got it. Okay. Let me turn it over to my board colleagues for question or comments this evening.
I'll chime in with a question. The data that sort of stands out to me is the SGP data. And I'm curious if you think the recent expansion has anything to do with that, or how you would sort of contextualize that data, because it stands out to me, in comparison to some other very strong data in this overall renewal. And so just curious to hear you talk about that a little bit.
So no, we don't believe the expansion had anything to do with that. But in order to bridge the gap, we are laser focused on our data. Our partnership with EdOps and our leadership coaching and more sophisticated data analysis with our leadership team have led us to support improvement in our data. We've made decisions to move away from NWEA map to iReady, and we know that the data we get from this assessment will be more helpful in supporting our achievement gaps as well.
And I will also, in terms of the expansion with the 160 kids that we brought in, our data has shown that it takes kids about 2 years to acclimate. And so that is contributing to the gap that we've seen, but we're aware of it. And now we're being a bit more thoughtful about how we're welcoming new kids in our community, and clearly not having an increase in our cap will help us do just that.
Building on that a little bit, the Montessori model is very specific, and looking at how are you like staffing teachers to do that, and with kind of the increase of student capacity, that also means a staff capacity. So I think looking at how do you realize that that was a huge influx, and then moving forward, what does that look like over the next couple of years in terms of staff development in the Montessori model, and then also look how are you bridging that to assessment, and then also looking at what's the coaching model from the Edmond team to support that growth.
Yeah, I mean, we welcome the challenge that 500 other public Montessori schools face across the nation of how do you have a Montessori school, which in the United States is predominantly in private environments, but then in the public setting. And so over this term, we have realized that we need a little bit more support. And so that's really where our partnership with the University of Delaware that specializes in public Montessori came to be. We're in the second year of that partnership. In fact, they were just here today leading some professional development, going into classrooms and offering some coaching. And then starting with this next contract, we'll also be hiring for an additional assistant principal, which is really accounting for the fact that we just need more help now that we have so many kids. And then we're also hiring for a full-time public Montessori coach who will work with school leadership to kind of bridge that gap. And we know we're not unique in that challenge.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any additional questions this evening? I'm just going to echo my fellow commissioner, Reading Wallinger's kind of inquiry around the student growth. I think that's something really important for the school community to really put your eyes on in terms of how we're supporting our learners from grade to grade. I can appreciate some of the challenges, but recognize just a sense of urgency for our young people. So thank you so much to the entire team for coming out tonight and for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Angela, what school is up next?
And so last but not least, we are going to bring up Bard High School Early College, which is the secondary school. And they are effective in both student achievement and financial management and governance. They're developing in climate, and they're recommended for a 3-year renewal. So if the board team can go ahead and put on their cameras, and you can begin introducing yourselves.
Good evening, Board of Commissioners, Executive Director Alvarez, and Dr. Santelises. My name is Helene Cocagna, and I'm the proud principal of Bard High School Early College, Baltimore. I'm joined this evening by members of our school community, including administrators, students, advisory board members, and our operator team. Thank you for the recommendation that Bard be renewed for 3 years and for allowing us to continue to serve our students. As we approach the 10-year anniversary of Bard's partnership with City Schools, we look forward to deepening our contributions to Baltimore City students. As our students have demonstrated, the young people of Baltimore City are eager to learn and capable of engaging in college-level coursework when they're provided with both opportunity and ample support. Our MCAP scores indicate that a rich and rigorous college curriculum is the best way to ensure that students are college and career ready. On average, Bard Baltimore graduates leave us with about 57 units of college credit, which reflects a substantial reduction in tuition costs for students who continue into subsequent institutions of higher education. Because of our program, we have students graduating and going straight into trade programs, as well as to top universities all over the country, like Stanford, University of Chicago, UPenn, Johns Hopkins, Princeton, Howard University, Morgan State, and University of Maryland. Not only are our students getting in, they are continuing to excel. A recent impact study shows that our graduates who go on to subsequent college programs are consistently graduating with bachelor's degrees, often in just 2 or 3 years. Our dedicated faculty and staff are committed to meeting our students where they are and accelerating their academic journey. Our emphasis on student potential rather than prior academic performance allows us to engage students whose past performance may not grant them admission into a competitive high school that relies on composite scores and GPAs. We're able to reach students who, while academically capable, may need another chance after middle school. As we look ahead to the next 3 years and beyond, our focus will be on maintaining our commitment to providing rich educational experiences to Baltimore City students, identifying additional opportunities for community and civic engagement, and extending our reach to more students in Baltimore City. I now invite one of our students, Ms. Morgan Kearney, to share some remarks.
Hello, good evening. My name is Morgan Kearney. I'm currently a junior at Bard High School Early College in Baltimore. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I'll be brief, but I want to talk about 3 reasons that Bard has impacted my education. First, I have access to a wealth of opportunities that I would not otherwise have, like the Pan America Conference that I attended this summer and the Bard campus in Berlin that I'm applying for this year. Second, because in the future I want to be a surgeon, the fact that I'll be able to get 2 years of college done early here has made my dreams feel a lot more achievable and more possible. And third, the last thing that I really love about my school is its structure and community. Bard's small class sizes have made my college professors really accessible for extra help both inside and outside the classroom. It has made them extremely easy to talk to. And the last thing that I want to say is that Bard's community is extremely student-led, and this approach has made me feel like my participation matters a lot. And I'm just really glad to be at Bard, and I couldn't imagine myself anywhere else.
Awesome. Does that wrap up everything?
Thank you, Morgan. Yeah, I'll follow. Thank you, Morgan, for that. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Olga Ramos. I'm the Deputy Director of the Bard Early Colleges, Bard Baltimore's operator. We are thankful for the Baltimore City Schools partnership and trust throughout the life of our program. This partnership has enabled Bard Baltimore to remain steadfast in its mission to empower motivated high school students, just like Morgan, but also particularly those at risk of not completing post-secondary education to access, afford, and complete college. We are especially thankful to Angela Alvarez and the Office of New Initiatives for guidance and support during our leadership transition. Indeed, our mission endures today under the capable leadership of Dr. Helene Kakagna, following a smooth and successful transition from our founding principal. As we look ahead to a new term, our mission remains providing a rigorous Bard education, free college credits, including a free associate's degree, and a clear pathway to success in higher education.
And thank you. That is time.
Thank you so much, the entire team. I think that's a great presentation for us to open up for questions. See which of my board colleagues may have anything to add.
Chair, I do have a question, but I keep going first, so I want to be mindful of letting other people go.
Is there anybody else on the board team that'd like to go?
I appreciate that you break the ice. Go for it.
I try to be deferential and let you guys go first before I dive into the questions. So, but go ahead, Commissioner Lollinger.
Thank you for the presentation. And I got to say, I'm quite impressed by the academic results and just anecdotally what I've heard and all of the things that you shared. I think I'm trying to understand and contextualize some of the climate data. And so I was hoping you could just shed a little bit of light on how you're interpreting it, how it kind of aligns. I mean, a rubric can only tell so much of a story, but can you talk a little bit about how you interpret that piece of the rubric and how that aligns with what's happening at school on a day-to-day basis?
I absolutely can. Thank you for your question. When you look at the breakdown of the rubric, there are a few things in there that I feel we're not able to really capture the success that we see in the academic record, the test scores and the success that students in terms of graduation rate. When the committee was at our school visiting the SER committee, School Effectiveness Review, they actually sat down with us as a team and said, we're having trouble because we see such amazing things happening and they don't necessarily show up in this rubric that we are asked to use. So we had people coming and saying, it's clear from the data that this is working. And so I think that ensuring that we are meeting those things that are expected in the rubric, things like documentation of development of the teachers, feedback. We also have a different sort of structure because we are bringing in people often who are coming from higher ed, and then they are learning how to teach at the secondary level. We also are very lucky. We've had a lot of success finding people who have come in with both. And so I think it's really just having the sort of marriage of those two and helping to reflect the things that we are doing in the classroom so that when people come in for classroom visits and when I and my team are documenting observations so that they can see what it is that's leading to those outcomes. I hope that answers your question.
I think it does. I mean, I think what I'm hearing is there's some structural differences about your school that maybe don't lend themselves to some of the ways in which climate might be captured on the rubric. Can you just sort of tell me how would you describe the school climate at Bard in your own words, not using the rubric?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. And I think also Morgan may be a great person to hear from as well. I would say that our climate is a warm climate where people come in and there's this excitement to see one another. And that includes the adults in the building with the students. Students frequently are asking, can I go see this teacher during lunch? They want to spend time with their professors and are eager not just to come in and say hello, but they've read something interesting and they want to continue debating something they were talking about in class. So I'd say we have a really supportive climate. We have also anecdotally have heard from students who enroll in our school that they hear that it is a school where you can be safe and be yourself. We have a lot of the sort of word of mouth that students who fit into the LGBTQ community, that they feel that they can safely come and be themselves in our community. So I'd say that, and I'd say you also can be whoever you are. You can be really nerdy and love philosophy while also playing basketball. There's all different things. So Morgan, I don't know if you want to add anything since I'm not a student, but that's sort of my impression of things.
I would say that's pretty accurate, especially the like free expression stuff. Like even though it's high school and you would expect like all your peers to be really judgy, I feel like at Bard I'm like my most authentic self, and the people at school like respect that about me.
Thank you, Morgan.
What additional questions from our board colleagues? So one I have, and this is just a curiosity, like as I'm learning more and more and more about operator capacity to really serve these schools. So tell me a little bit more about like the journey that, as an operator, you guys have been on to really support, the backbone infrastructure and all of the wonderful things that we're hearing about here today, and also the opportunities for growth and where you're investing in your own kind of capacity building.
Sure, I'll defer to Dr. Williams and Ms. Ramos on that.
Yeah, I can jump in. Hi, I'm Jermaine Williams, Vice President at Bard College. Nice to see you all this evening. A lot of our support, right, has shifted, right? At first, we were really focused on new school startup, right, and kind of getting everything on the ground bringing this new model to Baltimore, learning the city, understanding the intricacies of running a school. The BARD model is 20 years old, but are working in Baltimore at the start at day one. Now we've shifted, right, as we approach our 10-year mark, to really thinking about sustainability, thinking about, how do we develop a working model there that really meets the students where they are. As Dr. Kakania said, we have a very unique admissions process. We're not looking for a specific type of student in terms of a test score or in terms of a path metric. We're looking for, desire to learn and to love of learning. And so I think all the support that we do as operators is to help from the financial piece, a lot of grant applications, a lot of figuring out how to bring additional resources to the school, a lot of support in terms of professional development for faculty. Early college teaching is its own thing. It isn't teaching college, it isn't teaching high school, it's teaching both every day in the same buildings, and providing a lot of support for the team, both the administrative team and the faculty and staff around those. And then a lot of it is also strategic planning and program management work that we do as well.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. Any further questions from my board colleagues or comments? Hearing none, I just want to thank you so much for also bringing a student to tell Morgan. I really appreciate your perspective. It helps to bring this to life in a way in which, we as commissioners will never fully understand from our seats. So I enjoy hearing about your journey at BARD, and that's just been so helpful, and I wish you all the success in the world. Thank you so much to the entire BARD team for coming tonight and telling more about your school story. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
I think, Angela, does that bring us to the very end for this evening?
Yes, it does.
All right.
And early. That's amazing.
Well, thank you, Angela. I really appreciate you and the entire team and O&I for putting it together tonight and working with all of our charter operators to really help us understand, more about just what's transpiring at the school. And I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and to the schools who prepared presentations. So as we close, we want to make sure that the public is aware that there's more information about the process and how to get involved found on the annual renewal page on City Schools website. It will provide more information on the link, but you can go to the City Schools homepage and type annual review in the search bar and it should pop up. So now through January 10th, the members of the public and school communities can submit written testimony to the board. We'll accept that through our board email as well. For schools recommended for non-renewal or closure, there'll be 2 opportunities for members of the public to provide testimony on these recommendations at the December 12th and January 9th board hearings. So instructions on how to sign up to testify are on our website, along with the instructions on how to provide written testimony to the board. The board expects to vote on all of these recommendations at its public meeting on January 14th, 2025. We'll be back tomorrow evening again at 5:30 p.m. for the second half to review a second set of schools. We look forward to the public and other operators joining us for that presentation. So I want to thank all of my board colleagues for joining us, the O&I team, as well as the public as a whole. I hope everybody has a good night, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sometimes.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.